according to Jesus' character, his purpose, and in his name we pray. Amen. Well, this morning I want to talk about love songs. I can't believe we've got this series about songs, and what Margaret tells me is we haven't hit love songs yet. Because love songs are what it's all about. Love songs have a long history. As a matter of fact, in the Bible, there's the Song of Songs, the Song of Solomon. It's a series of love songs that were sung at weddings. And let me tell you, one time I was at seminary and I sat down with my professor of Hebrew and we went through what those Hebrew words actually mean in the Song of Songs. And it is pretty racy. Children are present, so I'm going to have to speak in code. Kids, just keep coloring. All right, while I talk, okay? But the Song of Songs is about your love as a consuming fire. It's about, I wait for my beloved, and it talks about your teeth, your face, your neck is like a stately tower, and then it goes down from there. And that's not the only book. As a matter of fact, in the prophets, Hosea, God says, I want you to marry a woman who works at the corner at night. Okay. And so Hosea is torn apart because of her unfaithfulness. And God wanted that to be a metaphor of how Israel is unfaithful to God, because God is a jealous God. You can go back even further in the Ten Commandments. What does God say? What is the one of the Ten Commandments? You will have no other gods before me, because I am a jealous God. Just you and me. No one else. Don't diversify your portfolio. No backup. It's just you and me. You got to trust me. You got to depend on me. It's even in the Hebrew word. You know, in the patriarchs, you know, in Genesis, is that in Abraham knew Sarah, and then Isaac showed up. So even the word to know, we you know, it's very intimate experience. So we're talking about love songs, and I want you to know that a lot of love songs start out in the church. As a matter of fact, a lot of our greatest singers start out in the church. They grew up singing about God, singing about Jesus, and then God got changed to girl, and Jesus got changed to baby in popular music. You know, Sam Cooke, Marvin Gaye, Aretha Franklin, on and on. Popular music, R&B, music, people trained up in the church. And then they learn popular music, and then if you're Al Green, you go back to the church. And because you realize that's where your heart is. So that's what I would like us to do, is to think about this song that comes up, because it's about intimacy, it's about being vulnerable, it's about being in a relationship and being saved by love. A love that you know you don't deserve. So listen to what God has to say, even in this popular love song. She's something, isn't she? I had nothing to give. I needed shelter from the storm I was in. When things got too heavy, you carried my weight. I want to hold you, and I want to say, he wants to touch, to be close. You see me, you love me just the way I am. For you, I'm a better man. You're the reason for everything I do. I'd be lost, so lost without you. I want to talk about identity. This is, as you approach the David, one of the figures that are half carved by Michelangelo. They're emerging from the rock. And he didn't just block out the figure and then go finer. He could see it so clearly that he would go into detail immediately. And so it looks like they're emerging live from the rock. This one is called awakening, or the awakening slave, because I want to talk about identity and how we wake up. He says, for you, not I will be a better man, but I am. Because we all know that transformation is not at New Year's when you say, I'm going to change my behavior, I'm going to lose 10 pounds, and you have goals and you're trying to hit those, and it's about modifying your behavior. No, what changes our identity, what changes us is a changed identity. Not, I will be, but I am. For you, I am a better man. Not a perfect man, but a better man. Even if the only thing that I've learned is a little humility, a little gratitude. For you, I give my soul to keep. You're the reason for everything I do. What does that sound to you like? Now I lay me down to sleep. I pray the Lord my soul to keep. The reason for everything I do. It's a song of worship, isn't it? Because worship is about worth-ship. You are worthy of everything in my life. For you, I live. You're the reason I wake up in the morning and for everything I do the rest of the day. What and for whom do I live my life? That is worship. Who do I live my life for? Now, if that's another human being, that's a lot of pressure, isn't it? Think about that. Do you want that? Do you want someone to say to you, you know, you're the reason for everything I do? You know, I give my soul to you. Whoa, whoa. That is tough, right? Because you know what? I am a sinful, broken person. And have you ever heard this? We are a community of what? Broken people. So if someone is going to give their souls to us and to live for us, they will experience disappointment, right? It will go badly. I am broken. I will fail you. So how does this love song work? There's only one way it works. C.S. Lewis talks about who and what we worship. This is what he says. We may give our human loves the unconditional allegiance, which we owe only to God. They become gods. Then they become demons. Then they will destroy us and also destroy themselves. For natural loves that are allowed to become gods do not remain loves. They are still called so, but become, in fact, complicated forms of hatred. You see, nothing and no one can sustain that kind of worship. No one except the one. And so a human can be a reflection of God's grace, of God's mercy, of God's forgiveness, but not the source. A human can be part of what God puts in our lives who show us God's tangible, incarnational love, but is not the origin. And so Lewis has a good point. God is the only one who can receive our worship without it destroying us. In fact, that is the only way we become our true selves. And you're wondering, preacher, when are you going to get to the Bible? Well, now we get to the Bible, because that is what Paul writes in Galatians chapter 2, verses 20 and 21. I have been crucified with the Anointed One. I am no longer alive. But the anointed, by the way, anointed is what we call the Christ. Anointed means the King who is anointed by the Spirit with power to restore us to the new creation, to the kingdom of God. So, I've been crucified with the Anointed One. I am no longer alive, but the Anointed is living in me. And whatever life I have left in this failing body, I live by the faithfulness of God's Son, the one who loves me and gave his body on the cross for me. I can't dismiss God's grace, and I won't. If being right with God depends on how we measure up to the law, then the anointed's sacrifice on the cross was the most tragic waste in all of history. Do you feel the passion of Paul there? Let me just say, people were coming to the church in Galatia and saying, no, you got to follow these Jewish laws about this is what you eat, this is what you got to avoid. And they were laying all these burdens on the people. And Paul was saying, look, in Antioch, they were doing that too, and Peter got suckered into by the peer pressure of living like that. And I said, no, this is the good news. It's only by our trust in Jesus and his love for us on the cross. And he says, for I have been crucified with Christ. Now, a while back, you remember, we talked about well, I call it the Vitruvian Man. This is from Leonardo da Vinci. It's a graphic of what he drew with all the extra parts that kids don't need to see. So the first one is the posture of crucifixion. For I have been crucified with Christ. Here's the truth that a lot of church people don't realize. I have been crucified to the degree that I die to my desires, to the other things that I would live for, that would be the reason for everything I do, to the degree that I let that go and let Jesus and his love and his mercy and his forgiveness be my reason. I cannot experience the life. The life I live in the body, I live by trust and faith in the Son of God who loved me. And that life is represented by this position. You can't get here and skip this. To the degree that we learn to die day by day. Calvin knew that. We're saved by Jesus' sacrifice on the cross, by when we receive it, when we trust in what God has done for us. But the rest of our lives, we're trying to work out what that is. And it's a day by day. Until you die to yourself daily, you can't be my disciple. Jesus said he knew that. It wasn't laying on something heavy. It was just a spiritual truth. We will not experience the I, not I, but Christ, the anointed who lives in me, the Son of God who loved me and gave himself for me, will not truly be fully alive when we hold back. So, why? Because now, and here's the thing, now I live by faith, by trust in the Son of God who loved me and gave himself up for me. But you could also say, and here's a picture of the anointing, of the anointed one shining on us. I live by the faithfulness, the trustworthiness of the one who loved me, the Son of God who gave himself for me. So is it faith in Jesus, or is it the faith of Jesus? What I like about this translation, because the emphasis is on the faithfulness of Jesus, who loved me so much that he gave himself over for me on the cross. The one who gives up his life for me. And therefore, Jesus goes on to say, the one who gives up his or her life for me finds it. The reason for everything I do, the life I live in the body, I live by faith. I live by the faithfulness. What does it mean? There's three prepositions, actually. I looked at it. In verse 17, he says, hey, we don't trust in the law to get right with God. We put our faith into, and the verb is active. It's moving toward, it's entering. Pay faith into the Son of God. Well, what is the preposition here? It's just 2 letters in the Greek, N. It's a primary preposition denoting a fixed position in place, time, or state. It's in between the into and the out from. It's in the interior of some whole, within the limits of some space. It's a fixed position in place, time, or state. It's in the interior of some whole. And do you know what that whole, who that whole is? The anointed, the Son of God, the resurrected and living Christ. When our trust and our faith are contained completely. That's why you can translate it both ways. I live by faith in the Son of God, or I live by the faith in the Son of God, who loved me and gave himself for me. And Lewis goes on to say, your real new self, which is Christ's and also yours, and yours just because it is his, will not come as long as you're looking for it. It will come when you are looking for him. A lot of people think following Jesus is a self-improvement project. It's not. It's not about navel gazing. Am I good? Am I good? Am I good? No. That is absolutely irrelevant. It's about keeping our eyes fixed on the one who loved me so much that he went to the cross for you and for me. But you know, we have spiritual ADD, don't we? We look at a lot of other things. I know I look at all the things. Is Jesus the reason for everything I do? I know I'm lucky if I get up to 5-7%. Because there's a lot of things I look for in the morning. It might be our work. It might be pleasing those who are closest to us, or at least not being in trouble with the people closest to us. It might be all kinds of things that we measure ourselves by, our bank account, our shoes, our car, whatever it is. It might be any number of things. But what is the reason for the things that we do? It's time to take our spiritual pulse. It's time to take inventory and say, have I died in this area of my life? Am I truly alive in this area of life? Or am I struggling to get out like that carving in marble, the awakening? Am I still coming awake? Where are those places where I and you need to wake up? Where is the place we need to put that down and die? So I've talked about identity, the I, the not I. I want to talk about intimacy. Where is the place? Where is under the stars at the edge of the sea? There's no one around, there's only you, me. Where is the place where we have a conversation, where we are intimate, where we connect, and we are close enough to touch and embrace God? I'll tell you a few stories. I could be any number of people. Let me just talk about one. A woman at the well. It's high noon. It's hot, hot, hot. She's ostracized from the community. She's one of those women, probably you could say, that if she wasn't on the corner, she had so many relationships. She was looking for other things to live for. And Jesus encounters her at the well, and he talks to her to the point where she runs into town and says, he told me everything I ever did. Could he be the anointed one? And invites everyone to come back. Why? Because you see me. You love me just the way I am. For you, I'll be a better woman. And Peter, on the road to Damascus, he gets struck down, and a voice says, why are you persecuting me? And he realizes that all the things that he thought he was a false self, that he was righteous by what he could earn in his way to God. And Jesus said, no, now you're going to serve me. And he thought about all the ways that he persecuted and killed and ruined people's lives. And he could come to say, no, you're the reason for everything I do. You see me, you love me just the way I am. For you, I'm a better man. Because he encountered the risen Christ. And us, what about us? I like to think we're like those guys on the road to Emmaus. We're walking along, and this person we don't really recognize, and they start talking and talking and talking. And we realize, yeah, that's right, I didn't know. And the pieces come together. We thought our lives were broken. We thought we had nothing to give. And then it all comes together, and our joy is released, and weren't our hearts burning, they say afterwards. And when do they recognize him? Where is the point of intimacy with God? Where is the place where we can say, you see me, you love me, just the way I am? And then he takes the bread and he breaks it and he disappears. This is the place. This is the place where we get to reset of all the things that we have been chasing, all the loves that would destroy us. This, at this table, is where we know I had nothing to give. You carried my weight. I give my soul to keep. You see me. You love me just the way I am. For you, I'm a better woman, a better man. Here we learn to increasingly live out. You are the reason for everything I do. I'm lost. I'm lost without you.